With each day that goes by, we are closer and closer to the NCAA tournament. We are now less than 3 weeks away from Selection Sunday and the unveiling of the bracket. Johnny Sports Network here to provide you with my latest bracketology update. Last week, it was the practice bracket. This week, some more bubble conversation, as the bubble is going to get even more intense in these next 2.5 weeks or so. And also, some mid-major conference tournaments begin next week. So tickets are going to start being punched, and that just goes to show how close we are to starting this tournament. So today, for the bubble conversation, I have all the teams that Jerry Palm lists under the bubble. I'm nowadays going to go back and forth between Joe Lunardi and Jerry Palm, I think. As I have expressed before that I do like Joe Lunardi's credibility, but Jerry Palm, he also has great credibility as well. And the teams he has on the bubble, Gonzaga. And I feel like this is the second year in a row that we've done this. Talking about Gonzaga, they don't look as good this year. They're not a good team this year. And then they end up winning the conference tournament. And I think that's ultimately what is going to happen. I feel like that's inevitable. But I completely understand why Gonzaga is on the bubble right now. But I still think Gonzaga is going to be in. If Gonzaga doesn't win their conference tournament and they lose the conference tournament championship game, I still think it's good enough for them to be in, given they have a net ranking of 10. Nebraska, I think they are at the very least going to be in that first four. I have Nebraska in the field right now, as they have a better resume than a lot of other teams in question that people probably don't know about. San Diego State, I think, like Nebraska, worst case scenario, they're going to be in Dayton for the first four. Someone that we would have never expected to be on the bubble, especially this season, UConn. And I've seen people talk about UConn being on the bubble, and I think UConn is going to end up being, at the very least, a 10 seed. I have them probably ending up being a 9 seed. I think they could go back up to the 8 line. Vanderbilt, they have been on and off throughout the past few weeks, about maybe past month or so. I think that Vanderbilt, I think they are in right now, but I think they need to tread lightly at this point in time. They have a big game this week against Texas A&M, and this is honestly the best time for them to be playing Texas A&M, as they have been struggling the last couple of games. Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma is out at this point. They do have a very daunting schedule coming up, which is not a good thing to hear if you are Oklahoma in the bubble, but what's good about it is you have opportunities to get some wins. I think if they can win a game or two in the SEC tournament, and if they go maybe at least 2-2 in these final four games, I think their non-conference will be able to save them and put them in the field. But right now, I think they're out. West Virginia, right now, Jerry Palm has West Virginia as a 10 seed at this point. And Jerry Palm does not do the last four buys or next four out or anything like that. So it's really hard to say how is West Virginia in the tournament right now to the actual selection committee. Do they have West Virginia just on the verge of being in the last four in, or are they more in the last four buys? But West Virginia, they just have to keep winning games, just like every other team on the bubble, and then things will eventually sort themselves out. But West Virginia, they had some high expectations going into the season. But West Virginia, another team that is really hanging on at this point, as is everyone else in this conversation. Arkansas, Jerry Palm has right now in the last four in. And Arkansas, they have had some opportunities go by the wayside in these last few weeks. I did say that Arkansas, that win against Kentucky on the road, that it had the potential of being the season-changing victory for them, the season-saving win. And Arkansas, they have rallied to be in the bubble conversation. And could them being in the daunting SEC conference be what propels them into the tournament? Boise State, Jerry Palm currently has Boise State in the first four out. And I do think that is appropriate, at least. I do think that Boise State is unfortunately being a victim of being in a smaller conference compared to other teams in question. Because Boise State, they have a net ranking of 46. Oklahoma, a net ranking of 51. West Virginia, a net ranking of 48. But what I have noticed in the last couple of years, even though the committee, I feel like, would value teams in the more competitive conferences, they do give the benefit of the doubt to at least one team in a smaller conference, a mid-major conference. Last year, we saw that go to Colorado State. And also a few years ago, they gave that benefit of the doubt to Wyoming. So, noticeably, the Mountain West is one of those rare mid-major conferences that I do feel like would end up getting the benefit of the doubt. Indiana State, they did not get that benefit of the doubt last season. Cincinnati is currently way outside of the bubble picture, according to Jerry Palm, and I do think that is a fair assessment. I would have that as the same, as they are 1-9 in Quad 1. They have not played a team in Quad 3 this season. Despite their net ranking being 44, 1-9 in Quad 1, that is not a good look for somebody that is looking to get the stamp of approval by the committee. Georgia is currently in the first four out, according to Jerry Palm, and I would feel like Georgia would be more in that next four out category. As Georgia, they've had some opportunities to get signature wins to boost up the resume, but they have yet to do that. And having a 41 net ranking, 2-11 in Quad 1, even though the SEC is a competitive conference, I do think that a Boise State or San Diego State, if it came down to it, would get the nod over Georgia. But Georgia, they have an opportunity to pick up a massive signature win against Florida when I'm recording this podcast tonight on Tuesday. Indiana is currently the last four in, according to Jerry Palm. And Indiana, I feel like, have not done themselves many favors, but they have picked up a couple of big wins in the past couple of weeks. Indiana, I just think they're holding on right now. North Carolina, Jerry Palm has them in the first four out, and I don't agree with that. I think North Carolina, they should be more towards the line of next four out. But you just never know. North Carolina, they could get hot at the right time. They did extend Hubert Davis, which I feel like if they did make the tournament, he would be let go. And we saw NC State make a run in the ACC tournament last year. Can North Carolina do it this year? Because that is what I think North Carolina has to do to make the tournament. SMU, way outside of the picture, according to Jerry Palm, in the next four out if he did what Joe Lunardi does and do a next four out. They have a net ranking of 39, but 0-5 in quad one. Not a quad one win this season. SMU, I think they had to make a big run in the ACC tournament to get in, despite the net ranking of 39. Texas first four out, and I had Texas safely in the tournament a couple weeks ago. But now, I think Texas is out of the picture. A bad loss to South Carolina on the road. I think that puts Texas out of the picture right now. We'll see if they can rally in these next couple of weeks. VCU and Joe Lunardi currently has them as an 11 seed, net ranking at 31, but not a quad one win this season. 0-1 in quad one. And could they get the benefit of the doubt? I really don't think so if it came down to VCU or Texas or VCU and maybe Indiana, depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks, or a VCU and San Diego State or Boise State, Wake Forest, and Xavier. Both of them are in the last four in. Xavier 1-9 in quad one. Wake Forest 2-6 in quad one. Both are 5-1 in quad two. Wake Forest 6-1 in quad three. Xavier 5-0 in quad three. In quad four, Wake Forest 6-0, Xavier 7-0. Net ranking, Wake Forest is 63 and Xavier is 53. If it came down to those two teams in particular, which based on how things are going right now, I would not be surprised if one of these teams ends up being the exact first team out at this point. But I think the nod would potentially go to Xavier because they have the better net ranking, even though they don't have a second quad win like Wake Forest does. Because, unfortunately, the selection committee, they have shown inconsistencies in the past. That's all it's really going to be from now and in the future is inconsistency. And there's talks about potentially extending the tournament to 72 teams, which I don't necessarily like, but I wouldn't be upset about it if it happened. Because a 72 team field and both these teams are in, there's no debate about it. But I think both these teams, they would get the nod over a VCU or even maybe a San Diego State. Cincinnati. I didn't mean to say San Diego State. Cincinnati, I apologize for that. Even though Cincinnati has the head-to-head win over Xavier, the inconsistencies of the committee, I would question that they would not respect head-to-head victories. But that is all I have today. The final week of the regular season is next week, and for some of the mid-major conferences, conference tournaments will begin, and tickets will be punched to the big dance. Until next time.